would you say if I told you that this dumb-looking and basic animated movie about toy robots that turn into cars and looks like it was made for 7-year-olds thanks to all of the terrible focus group-led promotions and commercials that we've seen dumped into mass media over the last few months is actually not only the best Transformers movie ever made, and yes, that even includes the 1986 animated feature. Blasphemy, I know, but it is true. But also that Transformers 1 is one of the best movies of 2024. I understand that this revelation may be unexpected and maybe even a little unbelievable given the complete pulsating butt that the ad campaign has been, but I assure you that I am not delusional. Mostly. I have carefully considered the evidence and have come to the conclusion that Transformers 1 is not only quality, it is high quality, and it's a quality that demands appreciation and your patronage. And I'm here to convince you that you should see this movie in theaters. So let's roll out and talk about the surprising Transformers 1. Transformers 1 is a 2024 animated science fiction movie starring the voices of Chris Hemsworth, Brian Tyree Henry, Scarlett Johansson, and Keegan-Michael Key. In this film set millions and millions of years before, I don't know, whatever TV show or movie it serves as a prequel to, we're introduced to Orion Pax and D-16, two rather familiar-looking robots who work in the mines of their home planet of Cybertron, toiling away so that they can get their hands on precious energon, which their society uses as a fuel and which is dwindling thanks to the loss of something called the Matrix of Leadership. They have a very deep and brotherly friendship with each other, and both of them yearn to be more than what they are because they think that they're more than meets the eye. But both of them are also powerless work robots who can't even transform into vehicles. So when fate comes a-callin', they journey to the dangerous surface of their homeworld to find that matrix of leadership so that they can revitalize their home planet, and in doing so, they discover the dark truth about their own society and begin their journey upon diverging paths that will turn friends into mortal enemies. I'm going to say this again because I don't want anybody to think that I stuttered or that I misspoke or that I'm using hyperbole. Transformers 1 is the best Transformers movie ever made. And I've already told you, I even think it's one of the best movies of 2024 so far. And on top of that, here I go getting myself into trouble. Transformers 1 is the best piece of Transformers media ever. This is a pinnacle. It is more than just a revitalization of a franchise that Michael Bay dry humped until it caught fire and exploded. This is the birth of something great. This is something that is so next level that to anything else that has ever been produced from this revered franchise and toy line. Transformers 1 is something uniquely transformative, and this came out of nowhere. I was not prepared at all. There are moments in this movie that are so amazing to watch, both as someone who loves film and someone who grew up with Transformers, that I honestly got tears in my eyes. And I want to tell you what it is, but I can't. But it's a movie at the end that just feels so right. Everything feels perfect. And I want to tell you, but I can't. It's just great. Like actual human tears secreted from right there. And I was like, what is that? That's a tear in a Transformers movie. What the? You may think me less manly for admitting that, but I believe that acknowledging my emotions makes me more alpha. Obviously, Transformers 1 is the story of the origin of Optimus Prime and Megatron, but One of the great things about this movie is that while you're watching it, you sometimes forget that's the story you're watching. And so when D16 does something dramatic and violent, you stop and you get this sobering realization that, wow, I forgot this was Megatron I was watching. I thought this was some guy I actually cared about. This is such a great prequel. Normally I hear, well, this is the origin story, and I just kind of go, no. And I think that's part of the reason why I felt such a disconnect with the marketing for this movie, because that's what it is. Witness the origin of Optimus Prime and Megatron. Do we have to? Guys, you have to. You have to. Character journeys and the character arcs in this film are done so well that the movie's own advertising is defeating itself for one simple reason, and that's Chris Hemsworth. And I'm not dragging on Chris Hemsworth, but whenever I heard that he was going to be Optimus Prime, I thought, oh no, really? And then I heard his voice and I thought, oh no, really? But that's the thing, and why I think this is actually a good casting choice. Because what you're hearing when you hear the "oh no" vocal performance is that you're hearing him at the beginning of the movie. The robot that we meet at the beginning of this film grows and changes into Optimus Prime as the events go on, and he matures and he becomes Optimus. Chris Hemsworth's vocal performance grows and transforms with that character. You know, it's actually quite beautiful in many ways, because Chris Hemsworth really is a good Optimus Prime, and you wouldn't know that from the commercials, but he is. Don't get me wrong, Peter Cullen will always be the best Optimus Prime voice. But Chris Hemsworth does a darn fine job, not only as being Optimus Prime as this movie reaches its concluding moments, but also being Orion Pax, showing a character becoming more confident, showing a character evolve into a leader, showing a character becoming the person that they were always waiting for themselves to become. I honestly think that Transformers 1 will probably be studied in film schools in the future just for the character arcs. Okay, students, please turn to page 452 in your textbooks. Today we will be studying the intricacies of character development in Transformers 1. I ain't gonna lie, I could teach that class. It's storytelling genius that as the characters grow and change throughout Transformers 1, their bodies change as well, and they change in subtle ways, so that D16, this friendly robot that we meet at the beginning, starts looking more like Megatron, and Orion Pax starts looking more like Optimus Prime. It's so visually clever and oftentimes so subtle that it catches you off guard, and oh my gosh, I loved it. I also have to give it up to Brian Tyree Henry for his portrayal of D16/Megatron. This could not have been an easy role to perform. To take on one of the most recognized cartoon villains of all time and give him a soul? How do you do that? How do you take Megatron of all people and make him somebody that the audience can relate to and sympathize with? I really don't think that Brian Tyree Henry is going to get enough credit for what he's done in this movie, so I'm giving him that credit right now. Brian Tyree's vocal performance in this movie is fantastic. His characterization of Megatron is the best we've ever seen. He needs that credit. Go see this movie. You'll see what I mean. And that's really one of the strengths of this movie, is that it's not just cartoony rock'em sock'em robots. It's not just mindless action. It is a story of friendship. It is a story of brotherhood. And in the end, it is a tragedy, a genuine tragedy that Shakespeare would have wrote, or rather robot Shakespeare would have wrote. Especially if you're a fan of Transformers and you know where the events are going after the movie is over. Amazingly, as a viewer, you never feel anger towards Megatron in this film. You feel sadness towards him. You feel like he's losing himself, and he's losing the things in his life that mean the most to him, because he just allows himself to fall to blind anger. But it's justified anger. And I think that is one of the things that makes this Megatron so special, is that he is justified because he is violated. His trust has been eroded. It's fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic. Megatron is one of the most cliched villains of all time. I love the guy, but he is cliched. Look at any portrayal of him from Gen 1 all the way up to the Michael Bay movies. He's cliched. He's clown shoes. But this time around, we see him treated with a level of respect and nuance where you pity him at times. And sometimes you see where he's coming from, and it's just next level storytelling. It should be applauded. Transformers fans should be on their feet and cheering in this movie. I even like Keegan-Michael Key as Bumblebee, which, he's not called Bumblebee in this movie, but he's going to be Bumblebee. I thought he was funny. He approaches Bumblebee in a way we've never seen before. Of course, the way we've seen before in the last 20 years is that Bumblebee is a silent character, but here he talks, and ironically, he talks way too much, which is a funny reversal. Keegan-Michael Key is just a funny man, and he handles that role so well, where another performer might have botched it and made Bumblebee annoying. He never comes off as cringy, though. Sometimes it feels a little bit forced. The humor and the lines feel a little bit forced, Aaron. But overall, I found the character just an absolute delight. And can we talk about Scarlett Johansson? Scarlett Johansson's character, Alita 1, she was great too. I know I keep saying these characters are great, these characters are great, these characters are great, but you know what? These characters are great. And I'm not going to stop telling you about how great they are just because you're tired of hearing about how great they are. I enjoyed Alita 1. She was, her strength. Her strength was not only in her leadership abilities, but also her ability to recognize strength in other people. She starts as this rule-following whip cracker at the very beginning, but like all the other characters, she grows and evolves into someone who recognizes the quality that she demands in herself in others. And I enjoy that about her character. I enjoy characters who are wise enough to know to step out of the way and let someone else be in charge. Most of the time we see this kind of character, they cling on to power and they don't want to lose it until they're absolutely forced to give it up. But Alita 1 isn't like that. She recognizes that Orion Pax has those qualities and says, okay, you know what? You take this. You're the better one at it. I love it. I love to see characters with this level of emotional maturity. Beyond the fact that Transformers 1's story is more than meets the eye, this film features some really cool world building. We've seen glimpses of Cybertron in the past. We've seen it in remains or in tatters. We've hardly ever seen it in all of its glory, or at least close to all of its glory. And it presents a world we haven't seen before. I thought it was really fascinating how Cybertron transforms as well. Landscapes will shift and grow right in front of your eyes. If you dig a tunnel into the ground, the tunnel will transform around you because the planet is basically a big transformer too. I thought that was great. The cities are really neat. Maybe it's just my own little personal sci-fi kink, but I love it whenever you see underground cities and there are buildings hanging from the ceilings like stalactites. I love that. I get off on that. Even the whole idea of the levitating highway that builds itself and then disassembles itself after a car goes by was just visually neat. It's a waste of resources and power in a power-starved society, but it is neat. It's like how no matter how badly the ship is damaged in Star Trek, the holodeck is still working because holodecks are neat. In addition, Transformers 1 offers up some very clever action sequences and some very satisfying action sequences. I hate to keep going back to Michael Bay. I'm a lot like Megan Fox that way. But I'm sorry, if you make a Transformers movie nowadays, you're going to be compared to Michael Bay. And there's nothing that you or he can do about it. Michael Bay's action sequences were often too frenetic and too chaotic to keep track of. I remember watching the Revenge of the Fallen, that terrible one at the pyramids. And during the sequence where they're fighting on top of the pyramid, the film actually broke. Yes, it was so long ago there was film. The film broke, and I just remember the lights coming up and just going, ow, because my eyes were hurting so badly. Transformers 1, however, frames everything very nicely, and it presents action sequences in new and exciting ways. For example, there's a chase that takes place on board a train that goes on a track that at one point goes to the vertical. And so all of a sudden this horizontal chase becomes this vertical climb. And I just thought that was exceedingly clever in the way that they did it. The action all throughout the movie is presented in a way that is easy to watch and keep track of. And so it's so different than the live action movies. It's competent. Bumblebee, I don't mean you. You're perfect the way you are. Transformers 1 is also a movie that captures a genuine sense of awe and beauty in places that you wouldn't expect. You've seen it in the trailers when the Transformers end up on the surface of their planet for the very first time and they see that sky and the aurora over them and all of the flora and fauna around them. The movie takes a moment and serves as a pause to let the audience and the characters catch their breath and look around and just soak in the amazement. I think movies need to do this more often. We need to take more pauses like this. Sometimes we just gotta absorb what's going on rather than being forcefully shoved into the next scene. Runtime be darned, let us soak it in. I don't really want to give away too much of the plot because there's a lot of revelations, and it's not a mystery box, which I think is great because I'm starting to really despise the mystery box method of storytelling. Transformers 1 just lets the story unfold naturally, which I also appreciate. But unfortunately, because I'm doing a non-spoilery review, I don't want to give away any surprises or turns or twists because I want you, the audience, to have the same experience I did. All I will say is you kind of see it coming a little bit, but it's still a gut punch when you realize just how bad it is. So now you have to see the movie to find out what I'm talking about. Transformers, Hasbro, you're welcome. I am shook. Folks, I'm shook because looking at the commercials and the trailers for this movie, I was not expecting what I got. I was expecting something immature and made for children and rather stupid, and I got none of those things when I watched Transformers 1. This movie is a fun, exciting, and original take on a transforming robot alien toy, and on top of that, it's mature and sophisticated as well, but not so much that it forgets that it's a movie about alien robots that turn into cars and that are on sale at a Target near you. If I were to make a comparison, and again, I know that this is going to be high praise and everybody's going to look at me and say I'm crazy, Transformers 1 is the Spider-Verse of Transformers media. I said what I said. Transformers 1 is the Transformers equivalent of Spider-Verse. If that don't convince you to go see this movie, I don't know what will. But if you don't see it and then complain that no quality Transformers media is released, that's your fault. If there ever was a diamond hidden in the rough, Transformers 1 is it. And if you love this franchise, if you love Transformers, you will be doing yourself a great disservice not to dig that diamond out of the rough and admire it yourself. I'm giving this movie a huge recommendation, and I'm telling you that if you ever loved Transformers even once in your life, you should see this movie. I was not prepared. You are not prepared. So go and be unprepared and enjoy the best Transformers media ever made. The best Transformers media ever made. And one of the best movies of 2024. I said it. I'm not taking it back. Thank you very much to my Patreons and my channel members. I do appreciate you so much. You're all my fellow Autobots, and we can roll out anytime you want. That's right. This is my impression of Optimus Prime, and I think it's pretty good. If you want to become a supporter of this channel, please check out the video description below or my channel main page. Also, be sure to check out the VHS Vault, where we look at movies of yesterday and today in a more spoilery and more casual and chaotic manner. I've got VHS Jace with me over there. You're gonna love the guy. Probably not as much as you love me, but you're gonna love him all the same. And that's all I got for you. So be sure to roll out next time to find out what Jason watches. Transform! Oh God. Oh, I've broken my legs and my arms. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Someone call a doctor or a mechanic.